okay? The superconductive energy. Now, superconductivity is four things. First, linear Paul magnetism, my energy platform. Fusion is biological and superconductive, okay? And gravity. You got to be able to amplify gravity, and we've proved all four of those. And those four rules prove and finish the four laws of thermodynamics, okay? Where does energy come from? Where does gravity come? How does magnetism made? And is energy created or destroyed? Answered all those questions, okay? So now you understand during the cold fusion experiments, they got an infrared signal. If I were to put an infrared thermometer on that, it would tell me about 180 degrees, even if I pulled the electrode out, because the infrared energy is going in. And I can look at that arc and not hurt your eyes because the energy is going in. The frequency of that electrode temperature is 900 nanometers squared. The same frequency squared as carbon. But the electrode, now that it's been initialized and ran this, it was a brand new electrode. Now that it's been ran this long, that carbon has gone to graphene. That electrode's cherry red hot at the bottom, and on top, it's ice cold, okay? So now the area inside of the electrode, the carbon has gone to graphene, okay? Edmond Storms, once again, sir, is his crack theory. During the cold fusion experiments, they got a burst of energy. Well, that burst of energy and cracked the metal. They can see it in the electron microscope. He's got an electron microscope practically one step away from his bedroom, okay? So the problem is that cold fusion experiment will not work in the path that they're working, but it is the path to hot fusion. The crack is because the carbon went to graphene, cracked the electrode, and then the reaction quit because they were all doing the same thing wrong, using the wrong energy input, okay? So we're going down, we're bouncing at 2 volts and 3.5 amps, and still a tremendous amount of steam. Also, during the cold fusion experiments, they got a radio frequency audible signal. This circuit puts out a beautiful audible signal, okay? So I've solved all the questions in cold fusion that they had in their 7/10 of a second anomaly and only 10 degrees over ambient temperature. That was it, okay? We're quite a bit over 10 degrees ambient temperature, that's for sure. So now the hot plate is cooling down. It's not the steam and all that is not being helped by the hot plate. We use the hot plate because normally this process on a cold tank, because the electrolyte that I use here is superconductive, even with this much energy, it could take 72 hours to get it hot. And I just got tired of that. And I was very fortunate to acquire these. I've got a couple of them, and move forward. So here, we're still blowing steam. We're still bubbling and boiling the water, but we're not doing it with the help of the hot plate. We weren't anyway. We're only at 208 degrees, but I'm just keeping a standing load here just to keep things going because I need this reaction to run to fill these bottles, because on Monday they're on their way to they'll be in the mail whether I'm here or not, because this time around, my board, everybody's been opened up, open source, and the technology will come forward. Because if I was right, which I believe that I am, and we're talking about viruses, and I'm very good at anaerobic viruses and bacteria in general. Since my vacation in April, 300,000 people have died. I saved 2 lives, my good friend Ben Rasmussen and his wife. And I'm very proud of that. And nobody can take that away from me. And nobody can say anything, because they have their lab reports, they have their thing, and they're willing to testify in front of the grand jury for me. So, check it out. We are at, I told you, when it bounced and we caught it on the camera 15 minutes ago, we're at 39 minutes. We caught it right around 20 minutes in, and now we're at 1 volt. And that flame, the camera's not doing it justice. It's purple. It's not orange. You're seeing orange. Okay. Check that out. So I've been in this technology since 06, and it's not been built. My first circuits in 06. That wasn't the hard part, believe it or not. The hard part was coming up with the understanding in physics. Once again, Sir Edmond Storms, who will be named on the patents, is, first day I met him, I just purchased a $500 million pulse plasma physics lab in technology research, plasma reactors, oscilloscopes, radical stuff from Los Alamos Labs. I paid a home for it. Let's just put it that way. You could buy a nice home for what I paid for it. So I roll up in the transport, me and my good friend Captain Bay, and Edmond Storms invites me into his house. After he met me at Tesla Technology Conference, he was a keynote speaker and I was a keynote speaker. Okay, so first thing he says is, "There's no money in fusion, boy. You better be studying this by your own or be independently wealthy." And I said, okay. Truth be told, I was independently wealthy at that time. You can see my packing house, 1.4 a month. Excuse me. So I said, okay. And so we went to tour an interview of his private lab. And then I showed him fusion. And he said, quote, "You may be able to perform fusion, and I can see by your results that I think you got it. However, you better show me how you calorimeter." So I drew I downloaded from the internet while I was editing his book at home. I'm segueing on purpose. And he upset me so much with that smart-ass remark that there was a squirrel, a rat running on top of a squirrel cage, and I drew a piece of cheese in front of it, called it, that was my calorimeter, and put a belt on it to a generator for the linear magnetism. And I sent it to him. And because he's a professor of physics and very astute from Los Alamos Labs, he slammed the phone down. It took me a couple years to apologize. However, after his lab tour and him checking my samples that wouldn't even register on his electron microscope or his spectrometry, he said, "You may have fusion whipped, young man, but if you can't explain it, you'll never get a patent. And if you get a patent and I can explain it over you, I'm going to take your patent." I said, okay. So it's the math and it's the understanding and the layman explanation of what's going on. I just gave you a little brief tour and tutorial of what's going on. It's a Meissner field, superconductive, coming from my superconductive circuits that are biologically beneficial. If this was neutron bombardment, which cold fusion will go to, and tritium through helium, that's a nuclear process because they're using electromagnetism, same thing they use to beat up a nuclear rod. I'd be dead by now in 06. I'd be dead in this 44 minutes if that was neutron bombardment. Okay, it's not. We've had Geiger counters, we have every test that you can obviously imagine to make sure this is safe for everybody. And I've been relatively quiet, unbeknownst to my setbacks of commercial robberies from my labs while I was on vacation. So I need a break once in a while, apparently. Other people believe. While people are dying. Okay. So we're just going to do a flow check again, just to make sure we got bubbles. Let me try something. How's that? Yeah. I had some thermometers, but I didn't even, what's the bother? I can guarantee you that glass is super hot. The water's boiling. We got steam coming out. I'm not going to touch it. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're into this video 45 minutes. I've said this time and time again. If I've got a video that's 45 minutes long, I probably had something important to say. Thank you. Have a good day. And last but not least, I would just like to say, because Edmond Storms is on the Appropriations Committee for Fusion for Los Alamos Labs in the House of Representatives, I would just like to say hello to Nancy Pelosi, my favorite, and God bless Joe Biden. Okay? And Kamala Harris. Yeah. Right on. Right on. So, when you see where we're at and what happened, ladies and gentlemen, Nancy Pelosi, Congress, you're going to be pissed. I can guarantee you. God bless all of you, Republicans and Democrats. I'm an independent. I don't vote. Cheers. One more shot, just because.